our political class seem to be intent on turning Britain into a new version of Lebanon, which personally, I don't think is a very good idea. Actually, I think that this is going to cause some serious civil strife in the near future. I mean, we've seen we've seen the sort of early indications of this, right? The Southport riots, I think, were the best indications of this, though there have been others. And this is something that I think is just going to get worse the more that Britain, in particular England, is colonised under the rubric of mass immigration. I mean, you've seen the 2021 census map. This was basically at the very beginning of the Boris wave, so this is way worse than it looks here. But as you can see from the map, the areas in the lightest green are the areas with the fewest English people in them. The areas with the darkest green are the areas with the most English people in them. Now, really, normally, in previous eras, all of this map, of England in particular, was very, very dark blue, because all of it was full of English people. But now, you've got areas where there is barely any English people, particularly in the capital city, but also in places like Luton, in places like Birmingham, and some of the areas of Manchester and Leeds as well. This, in Leicester too. There is a particular effect that mass immigration has had into what was previously a free country, and that is for groups of people who shared the same background to congregate in the same areas. Now, this isn't a crime, this isn't immoral even, this is completely to be expected, because why wouldn't you? If you were going to move to a foreign country, it is just the path of least resistance to congregate with other people like you. But that has a few corollary effects, and some of those effects are essentially to displace the natives from that area. And this means that that area comes to look like a colony of the place from which these people have come. Now, in very small numbers, in very small areas, that's not even a very big deal. But as you can see from the map, this is happening over quite large areas of England now, and it doesn't look like there's any particular end in sight. And a leftist might turn around and say, yeah, but what about the Brits going to Spain? And to that, I say, let the Spanish do what they want. I'm not going to defend British expats who move to Spain and form their own little expat communities where they don't learn the language, they don't integrate to the local customs, and they basically set up little English colonies in Spain. If the Spanish want to kick them out, or force them to learn Spanish, or whatever it is, go nuts. Like, and if anyone here is a British expat from Spain listening, you should learn the language and fit in, or fuck off, alright? I've got no sympathy for you whatsoever, and if the Spanish get, at some point, they're just sick of it, and they're just like, yeah, you know what, you guys can all just go, then you're coming back, lads, alright? That's how that's gonna go. And when that happens, these guys are going back too, just FYI. Anyway, the point is that there are loads of examples of videos from TikTok going around of just some English bloke walking around going, I'm in a part of England that's supposed to be England, but you would think this was Pakistan or Bangladesh or India or wherever. In fact, I'll play a video just so you can see.
This is the Muslim-majority town in Lancashire, England, where over 55% of residents identify as Muslim, the town of Nelson, just north of Burnley. It being said that a majority of the town's 35,000 residents come from an Indian, Pakistani or Bangladeshi background. As a result of this, the town is home to over 19 mosques and a surplus of South Asian bazaars, clothes stores and a range of cultural eateries. With the reason why the South Asian community is so prominent in towns such as Nelson being that back in the 1950s and 60s, many people from India and Pakistan were invited by the British government to work in mills and other industry in the north of England. And while making the move to Britain, many South Asians made it a duty upon themselves to preserve their unique cultural and religious identity through things such as language, food and dress sense, which can be seen in communities such as Nelson to this very day.
So we're not getting integration, right? That's crystal clear. All of the promises made during the Blair era of the early 2000s were false, right? The numbers were too great, and frankly, there was no pressure put on the people coming here to integrate. Because normally, and in previous eras, when you had people who came from foreign countries, there were just simply not enough of them. And there was a much more integrated culture in which they found themselves being placed. So they kind of had to integrate. But now there are millions of them here, and now they're being let in by the million each year. Just FYI, by the way, Keir Starmer got the number down last year, coming in to only about 950,000. Only 950. It's because the Conservatives had it about 1.4, 1.7 million coming in, because they're fucking nuts. But the Labour Party got it down to 900,000, which incredible numbers that are just mad, absolutely mad. But as you can see, these people have just got no interest in becoming like us. That's just not on the cards. They're not worried about that. What they're interested in is exploiting our country as if it were a new undiscovered land, like the United States was and the Americas were for the Europeans back in the sort of 17th, 18th, and Africa in the 19th century, right? That's what's happening to us, and that's what our governments are permitting. This is a new form of colonization, and we really have to make it stop. This can't go on forever, and if it does go on forever, things are going to get worse. And then you get people like Razib Khan here saying, well, it's sad what the UK has become. The reality is, even today, there's no reason to concede an inch to the race hustlers. Oh yes, we're the race hustlers, says Razib. Among 6-year-olds, nearly 60% are still white British. So, what? Are you saying that nearly half of children 6 years old are foreign? Right? Are foreign children? And the answer is no, that was back in 2019. The number now is 53.65% of births in Britain are white British. So nearly half are going to just be people of foreign extraction, right? That's what's happened in this country. That is the future that we've got to look forward to. It is going to be like Lebanon. And so it's like, right, okay, well, what exactly is the plan? What are we going to do about this? Now, I would suggest that the first thing we need to do is elect parties that understand that incoming migration has to basically go to zero, right? We do not need more people. If more people was the answer to any of the problems that we have, then you'd think we are now net 15 million people up. You would think now we would have enough people. But instead what we have is an overpopulation crisis. And I'm currently on holiday in Norway, and man, do I feel the overpopulation crisis of Britain over here. But again, of England in particular, over here. Because you walk around Norwegian cities, and they feel quite relaxed. There are people around, but like it's not rammed like it is back in England. The roads are not crowded with cars like it is back in England. People just seem to be enjoying a fairly leisurely pace of life and just hanging around. I mean, there are still the odd groups of African GDP and Muslim women with their burqas pushing strollers, but there are far fewer of them. And there are just far fewer people around in general, and it makes the cities far more livable, frankly. And you can tell by just looking. So I would suggest that actually incoming people just need to be stopped, because then what we do is we don't need any more people. We've got enough people, and the outflow of about 700,000 a year will just allow, without any kind of invasive government action, a general relief, a sort of release of pressure in the country. And then we can literally take other non-invasive actions. For example, the first thing to do, cut off benefits to foreigners. Right? If you're born outside of Britain, then you just shouldn't really have access to benefits. Maybe if you've served in the armed forces for a decade or something, a period of time serving in the armed forces, then you get to become like a fully integrated British citizen, and you can then get benefits. But without that, no. If you come to Britain, I just think you should just never be eligible for benefits. And so that is half of social housing in London. Those people, right, they're just going to go. They're not going to stay here if we're not paying for them to be here. And so we're not paying for their houses, we're not paying for their food or the shopping or the benefits or their children or whatever. They can all just piss off back to where they came from. And I think in their millions that they will, right? I genuinely think this. And that is literally, I think, half the battle solved with all of the problems. And that's just a couple of simple policy positions that, again, themselves are non-invasive. Because the thing is, it's all well and good talking tough on the internet, but the British public are still a very sympathetic lot. And if you present things that are unjust towards us, that are not intrusive and invasive on the people for whom they are the beneficiaries, as in stealing our money and redistributing it to foreigners, that's unjust and they've got no right to it. And if we just stop doing that, then there's really nothing you can complain about. There's no human right to mine money from someone from Somalia or whatever. So even the left won't really have any teeth in their objections to this. And this will, I think, deal with millions of them. Honestly, we can get rid of halal slaughter too, because that's horrific. If you've ever watched halal slaughter, you'll know. And millions of other immigrants will leave because of that. And so we can start changing these things by essentially just asserting our own culture, by asserting ourselves and saying, no, this is the way things will be. And if you don't like it, there's the door. If you're fine with it, then okay, you are allowed to stay. You're going to have your business. You carry on as normal. You just won't get free money from the state. No Motability cars. No free house. And also, a tax on remittances is another good idea. If you're coming over here to work, you're sending money back to India or wherever, you can pay some of that money to the NHS. I think that seems like a good use of our money that you're sending away. So, I don't know, 25% or something like that. So it's quite, you feel it, but it's, possibly enough to keep them doing it. But I think a lot of them would be like, right, okay, screw it, this is not worth it. And they'll go too. Again, all of these things that are not non-invasive and actually contain a great deal of justice in them when you think about them, I think are the best things to do. And remember that we are being treated as second-class citizens in our own country, and that's just not on. We need to be treated as first-class citizens. For example, a father in rugby, his daughter went into the school to celebrate Cultural Diversity Day, and she was dressed in British cultural attire, and she was told to go home, because no, that's not what we mean by cultural diversity. Your culture isn't really a culture, their cultures are cultures, and therefore, not only are they entitled to your resources, they're also entitled to the respect and dignity given to them by the state. It's like, no, that is not on, absolutely not on. Right? I mean, I don't think we should be celebrating foreign cultures, because, again, the purpose is to make sure that those people who have no interest in integrating leave, and the ones that are going to integrate have the presence of a strong and confident British culture to integrate into. And like I said, there are going to be people on the internet who are like far more hardline in all of this, but I honestly think their proposals are generally not that realistic. I think what I'm proposing actually is realistic and will be accepted by the majority of people. And even the majority of immigrants, to be honest, or at least the reasonable ones who want to stay. Because, frankly, this is our country and not theirs. It literally comes down to that. It's our country, and this is how we're going to take it back. But then you've got the other side of the coin, which are retards at The Guardian. The right wants us to think that Britain is on the verge of ethnic conflict. The truth is worse than that. In blaming problems on migrant outsiders, prophets of decline are paving the way for harder borders and mass deportations. So, okay, great. I would love harder borders. And mass deportations sound wonderful, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So we'll skip over the majority of his argument. What is his actual substantive point? What we're now witnessing in the right-wing press is the real-time creation of a new political myth. By calling forth the nightmare of state collapse under the ever-increasing pressure of ethnic conflict and white replacement, the right has managed to cast itself as saviours. Well, hang on. Stop right there, buddy. That is what's happening, and it seems to only be the right who is bothered and wants to do something about what you have identified there, right? So the left seems to be the reason this is happening, and the right seems to be the only people who want that not to happen. So if you can think of a way of casting yourself as the saviours of Britain, in particular England, from the unrelenting tide of diversity, I'd love to hear it, but I don't think you can, right? And that's why, as we go on, you have absolutely no solution to this. The nightmare serves as both a rallying cry and a legitimation, a call to a middle-class base which is feeling the pain of a stagnant economy. Those at fault are the radicalised outsiders who bring disorder and drain the state of its already squeezed resources, and a justification for the tough actions needed to stem the tide of immigrants across the border. Yeah, well, that seems to be the actual problem. I mean, we were told the other day that we are spending £1 billion a month on migrants and their benefits alone. That's just their benefits, right? That is an unbelievable amount of money. And that's not accounting for like NHS health tourism or any other like nonsense that we just pour away money. It's not the illegal immigrants. You know, it's just crazy how much money we're spending on this. And what's Mr. Merrick's opinion? Well, I mean, it's just the evil right. And he goes on to give us what he thinks is a brilliant solution. No mention is made of the policies that might actually help to stem the sense of economic decline that many British people feel, such as wealth redistribution. Oh, just so brilliant. It's just such a... You know what? I think it might just be communism, guys. That's what you need. I mean, it's literally maybe you're feeling disenfranchised because you don't own the means of production meme, right? No, it's because a bunch of foreigners are taking over the fucking country, mate, right? And also, tell me how this wealth redistribution works. Is it that you find white British people and give them the richest money? Is it? Or is it that you just redistribute it wholesale amongst the entire population, meaning you are just stealing money from rich British people and giving it to fucking foreigners, which is still the problem that we've been complaining about, right? You don't have an answer to this. You have literally nothing to say about this. All you can do is whine about austerity. Nor do today's declinists have anything to say about the role that austerity played in dismantling the state. The state is what's impoverishing us, right? Austerity means shrinking the amount of money that the state takes from hard-working, resource-producing people and making sure they keep it themselves, right? That's what would increase the amount of wealth in the general population. The state is the enemy. It's exactly as Rupert Lowe has been saying. The state is the enemy. And he says, in this sense, blaming decline on racial demographics is an opportunity to avoid changes that would be anathema to the right. To avoid changes that would just make things worse, right? That would just make things worse, right? This is not, as he says, our greatest fear, that the state will just continue growing out of control. Because at the end of the day, we would be able to get around or get past a state that has grown out of control. But if you literally diversify England out of existence, then there will be nothing to save once your gargantuan totalitarian state has finally run out of resources and collapsed itself.